we're going to be hearing once again about Clare's national secondary routes, with a strong emphasis here on the west of the county, the N67 and the N68 to be exact, where Clare County Council is being accused of passing the buck on road safety. June Dillon, Aontú's Clare representative, joins me on the line now. June, you're very welcome to today's Morning Focus.
Thank you very much for having me on. And this is an issue, I suppose, I live it every day, and people in the communities around me live it every day. So it's a constant, concern and an issue that I want to raise. And I suppose I am not blaming anyone, but information has come to light, and I suppose it's a very positive one, really, that there is a mechanism and a pathway now that we can work from, and that there's a clear pathway that we have found out from the Minister for Transport through parliamentary questions that I submitted.
And June, we'll just get there in a moment, because obviously you went to your party colleague Paul Lawless, the Aontú TD for Mayo. You got Paul to submit a number of parliamentary questions on your behalf about the N67 and the N68. Could you tell us why you submitted them, the nature of the information you were attempting to find out, and what those responses from the Minister for Transport ultimately told you about Clare's national secondary roads?
Okay, so I suppose the starting point is very simple, that we in West Clare have been asking for safer roads for years, and a road that reflects the volume of traffic that's developed. And I suppose there is a traffic counter there west of the Crossroads bar, even though that's not accurate as to the volume of traffic coming to West Clare, because it doesn't count the traffic before the Crossroads bar. And you're talking about, last August there was 50,000 vehicles in a week. So this information is available on the NRA traffic counter. So there's huge volumes of traffic, and we're having ongoing collisions or near misses. And people around the county can tell you about dangerous spots where lorries, vehicles, heavy vehicles are having problems overtaking. They're being sucked into the drains and the ditches because they can't pass properly. There's dips in the roads, there's subsidence, the surfacing is poor, grass verges collapsing. There's just so much, and it's just been neglected for years. And I suppose there's a clear urgency that investment must happen now. It's not an indulgence. For us in West Clare, it's an obligation, because safety is a big problem here now, and it's leading to chaos, and levels of frustration are very high. And that can be seen in people who are commuting over and back to Ennis every day or numerous times during the week, and they're actually dangerously overtaking just out of frustration. And normally they're probably very good drivers, but they're sick of it because of the volume of traffic. The road isn't fit for purpose. And
June, if we can, I suppose just for a moment, even if we can focus on those PQs. So what got Paul Lawless to put to the Department of Transport was what projects had Clare County Council submitted for. So I'll just give you the brief questions that were asked, okay? So we were asking the Minister of Transport, firstly, for the feasibility studies undertaken in the past 5 years into the condition, safety and capacity of the N68 and 67, okay, and to detail the findings. The next thing we asked was if any engineering or safety audits had been carried out in the last 5 years on the N67 and 68, and the works identified as necessary. Then we asked what were his plans to upgrade or improve the N68 and N67, including timelines for works, budget allocations, safety measures. We asked if consideration had been given to widening, strengthening or realigning sections of the road to accommodate heavy goods vehicles and tourist traffic. And we asked finally, what were the measures to ensure that traffic management during road closures is safe, supervised and doesn't impede emergency services. So basically, what came back is the Minister for Transport says he's the overall policy and exchequer funding responsibility. So he passed it to the TII for a direct reply in relation to those two roads. And what they came back with was very positive, because it's given us, like I said, a pathway. So it's very clear in stating TII provides the funding to local authorities. And the planning, operation and prioritisation of activities is down to the road authority concerned. And then the TII will link with them regarding funding. Then
the TII periodically carries out collision analysis of the entire road network, and they found that the roads, the N67 and the N68, were not identified as high collision locations. But notwithstanding that, it doesn't preclude a local authority from submitting a feasibility report with additional information where there may be unreported collisions or other safety considerations, for example, relating to public transport and schools, that kind of thing. But in order for the TII to provide funding for a safety scheme, the road authority is required to design an appropriate scheme to deal with the safety issues identified, carry out an economic appraisal, fully cost a scheme, and prioritise that scheme in relation to other works being proposed by a road authority. So they say that with reference to upgrade of the N67 and N68, Clare County Council would need to carry out an initial assessment, providing details on the rationale, submit a request to the TII for the provision of funds, and once this has been received, TII will consider the proposal with regard to the level of funding available. We have that very clearly reported there.
And June, we will have an opportunity later in today's show to put these questions to Clare County Council Senior Roads Engineer Cyril Feeney. But what we can clearly see from that, and while the PQ response has outlined that Clare County Council can itself go out, assess the danger of a road, propose through its own engineers safety measures or improvements, and cost the scheme to know how much funding they need to apply for. Ultimately, it still comes down to it that the TII and the National Transport Authority has to give us the funding for this. As bad as our roads are, every county is competing for funding. So does it really come down to, that we're not getting funding from central government?
Well, funding's only discussed after a proposal exists. And right now, it seems from what we're hearing that there is no proposal on the table. So you can't turn down a plan that hasn't been written, I suppose, And our problem back here in West Clare and in North Clare is we have no TD representation. So we have nobody up in Dublin liaising with these. If a funding proposal did go in, we have no one to advocate for us up there in West Clare or North Clare. And you can be sure what I'm suggesting is if we can get the required studies and plans in by the council by the end of this year, and then I can ask my contacts, which are Padder Tobin and Paul Lawless up in Dublin, to maybe represent us with the TII or advocate in any way possible, because I don't think anyone else in Clare, our elected representatives, they're really busy with their own urban populations, and it seems that we're just forgotten back here because there's been nothing done on this road for years, and we're calling for it and we're being ignored. We have businesses closing down. We have people who aren't working here because they can't live here because it takes so long to get to work. So we have schools closing down. We have communities being decimated. Why? Because one of the main problems is that the roadway, it's so hard and cumbersome to even get to Ennis, whether you want to go to Galway, whether you want to go to Limerick, no matter where you want to go. It's just, you have to go over to Ennis, and it's just, it's dangerous and it takes time. And if you're caught behind a slow car, you could be adding another 10 or 15 minutes onto your journey, apart from the safety aspect of accidents. So, yeah, other counties, we might be competing for funding, but it seems to me that there's some very good roads down in Kerry, there's very good roads up in Galway and Mayo, so why can't, for the volume of traffic that the N67 and 68 have, I'm sure if you look at similar roads in other counties, they're getting a lot more funding and there's a lot more work being done in them. And now we've the Irish Open coming to West Clare. What is going to happen from the ferry, Car Ferry and Clymer, the whole way up there to Cree and up to North Clare? We need funding for the roads there. We need fundings from Clymer over to Cree, or Kilmehel over to Cree, over around Cheyenne and Leitrim, that road there. What's going to happen when the Irish Open comes, and they're going to see the state of the roads, and hopefully there won't be accidents because people won't be used to driving those kind of poor quality roads.
Yeah, it's certainly a huge question to ask, because even before the Irish Open was announced for this coming September, we had to wonder what was going to be done for the heavy goods vehicles that were going to be traversing back there for the conversion of Moneypoint. But just staying with your point about, I suppose, our government representatives and central government funding, I'm sure our elected representatives would like to respond to those accusations themselves as well about their efforts to get funding for the National Secondary Network. But even earlier last year, we saw that to fix that sinking hump at Tullagower on the N68 near Clare, that cost the council on its own €250,000. An important section of road, but a small one. Another target by the Department of Transport, this is something they aim to do in every county each year, is to re-strengthen and resurface 10% of a county's road network. And one thing we've consistently heard from Clare County Council is it generally only hits 5 to 6% of this target due to funding constraints. So where do you think the deficit is coming from here?
I think this has to be looked at cumulatively. How much money has gone into that road in 30 years? And I'm not being I'm not saying that we need, that this money it's come here now, right now. I mean, this is cumulative. This isn't coming out of nowhere where we're saying, oh God, this is something that's happened of a sudden. It's an emergency. We need it now. This is cumulative. This has gone on for years. So where's all the funding been for years for West Clare and for the West Clare roads?
One I want to put quickly to you, Jim, because...
Now, can I just say one other thing? Last year there was a motion put forward in Clare County Council to recognise the strategic importance of the N68, okay? That was last July. I can tell you it's a strategic importance. They were committed to funding, and there was an engineer who I believe you're having on soon, and they were advocating for additional funding. They said they were going to advocate and support improved road network connectivity, advocate for upgrade of the Ennis to Kilrush Road. Well, it's time to put the advocating into action, and we need, as the TII have said there just this week, if we can get the schemes listing to them, if we can get the safety assessments, if we can get the feasibility studies, they'll then deal with the request for funding. And we need as much representation as we can from our TDs to get this in motion, because there's lives going to be lost. There's lives already lost. There's businesses closing down. There's people spending more time in traffic and getting frustrated and taking chances, and that's a modern reality. And we need to have an answer to this now. I mean, it's like everybody knows, it's a political fog, right? Everyone agrees the roads are inadequate, but no one will admit who's meant to make the first move. And the move has to come from Clare County Council, and I'm not saying they haven't been doing something already, but something has to give. Somebody has to make a start. There has to be a plan. There has to be a proposal, and the roads don't improve themselves. They improve because someone acts, and we have to push. Look at the roads in Kerry, like I said. Look at the roads in other counties. They're done with years. I mean, there's motorways, there's tunnels. With the last 25 years, the amount of money that's gone into roads, and West Clare has just been forgotten. And we just need somebody to, based on what we've told in the parliamentary questions, we need information and condition, safety and capacity. Okay.
Unfortunate to say, I'm joined now on the line by Clare County Council Senior Engineer for Transportation, Mobility, Health and Safety, Cyril Feeney. Cyril, you're very welcome to the programme today.
Good morning.
Cyril, does June have a point? What proposals has Clare County Council submitted to the TII for funding, for re-strengthening, for resurfacing, for improving the N67 and the N68?
Yes, good morning, Daragh. So we work very much in cooperation and consultation with TII and have done for many years. I mean, currently, I was just checking there earlier with our road design section, I think we have up to 20 schemes across the N67 and N68 road network alone that are through various stages of development. Not all of these schemes, unfortunately, get the funding ultimately that allows for their implementation. So we are very much in that space of working with TII and developing schemes for improving sections of the N67 and N68.
And I know, Cyril, look, listeners will hear that you're working with TII, but really what they want to know is timelines. They want to know, is funding coming, are upgrades coming? Because you have the Irish Open coming in September. I was only driving those roads last week myself when we were trying to get a look at Eric Trump for his visit. And with the volume of traffic that's to come, you're going to need a miracle between here and then. Like, is there actually, when can we expect to see boots on the ground, progress on the ground?
And I suppose, Daragh, that you've raised an important point there about traffic volumes, and we look at across the entire network, as do TII, and you target your investment obviously where you have the greatest demand or maybe the greatest concern from a road safety point of view. So if we just looked at the N67 and N68 just from a traffic volume point of view, and maybe your listeners would appreciate then the different scale of investment that gets put into, be it the motorway, the national roads, etc. So the N67, I think June alluded to the Clymer car ferry there, and that at the moment, and you can look, these figures are all freely available on the TII website, you look at about 1,500 vehicles. That's the annual daily traffic on the N67 coming up from the Clymer car ferry. If you look at the Knockalock junction there, the turn up to Kilmahill, which will probably be the primary route to the golf club there, you're looking at 4,500 vehicles. That's the annual daily traffic. Even the N85, the primary route to North Clare and I suppose the Cliffs of Moher, you're looking at 6,600. Now contrast that with the motorway network. So the M18 is of the order of 30 to 34,000 vehicles a day, and we all hear of the M50. And, there's sections of the M50 operating at 160,000 vehicles a day. So TII, I suppose, no different to everybody else, have to target their investment on where the greatest demand is, not discounting by any means health or safety concerns with respect to the network. So that's, I suppose, one of the main factors that determines where investment can be made in the national road network. But coupled with that, we do. We have a great engagement with our local representatives and all deputies and senators. And in fact, we were in Dublin last year with a deputation of councillors from West Clare, in fact from across all of the municipal districts, to TII in Dublin to advocate for additional funding. And many of the issues there, I think, that were raised by June earlier, were raised again by the council representatives and the elected members. So I suppose it is a constant ongoing push for additional funding, but rest assured we are always advocating for that for the road network in County Clare.
And I appreciate that TII has to look at demand and passenger volumes, and that is possibly why routes such as the M18, the N18, and look, of course, outside of this county will get priority. But that won't come as any comfort to somebody living in West Clare who has to traverse these roads every single day. And I'm conscious of a motion that Councillor Rita McInerney brought up at the December meeting of Clare County Council when she queried the proposals submitted by the council under the National Development Plan over and under €200 million. And contained in the council's response was that the council is now exploring interventions to the N67, to the N68, to the N85. Is there any further clarity, Cyril, on what those interventions are?
Yeah, so we are currently working on a strategic road plan for the entire county. But, and I can't stress this enough, Daragh, that will be governed by government policy. So government policy in the transport section is under the government. It goes by an acronym, as all policies. It's called NIFTY. So it's the National Investment Framework for Transport in Ireland. And that policy has a hierarchy of interventions. So, I just don't want to be building expectations that it's, we're not looking for, the correct funding, or we're not ambitious enough. We always have to work with respect to what the government policy of the day is. And the current government policy when it comes to investment in transport infrastructure is first and foremost, you maintain what you have. Secondly, you optimise to get the best use out of all of that. Then you improve maybe specific sections, and that is what we are always looking to do with TII, where we may have a junction that could be improved for sight lines, etc. We look at the high-speed collisions, or the high collision locations rather, and again, we've had a recent deputation there of the elected members and the community from Daragh who have come with their concerns regarding the road in that area. So, and again, that's all part of the investment framework. And finally, the last intervention is new build, if you like, a new road, or so it's always important to put it in the policy context, that there's no point in potentially saying we would like a brand new road from Ennis all the way to Kilrush. Yes, it's a worthy ambition, but we have to be cognizant of policy in this area. And policy in this area is currently maintain, optimise smaller interventions on the network, as opposed to just brand new dual carriageways to major urban areas.
And Cyril, just very finally before we finish up, and look, I am going back a small bit here, back to 2024, and this is something that the council itself is in control of. This is the municipal roadworks budget, and we knew in that year that despite comprising 31% of the county's road network, the Kilrush electoral area received just 25% of that budget for municipal roadworks. Ennis and Shannon's electoral areas that comprise just 9% of the county's roadwork got 15% and 14% of the total funding. So is there a fair point there that West Clare isn't getting what it deserves, even from the local authority?
Well, that's the 2024 allocations you're referring to there, Daragh. The 2025 allocations told a different story. And I suppose we did do a revisit of the investment strategy of the local authority when it comes to the local and regional roads, because obviously that's very much the Department of Transport and the local authority's own resources in how we invest in those roads. And the 2025 Schedule of Municipal District Works, which is effectively the roads programme for all of the county, that is a much more representative reflection of actually the needs of the different municipal districts based on the pavement survey condition indexes. So we looked at a broad range of issues with respect to funding the Schedule of Municipal District Works. And one of those issues was actually the pavement condition. So there's no point in, as you rightly point out, investing in a road that's in perfect condition. So we had a much more targeted approach last year in the Schedule of Municipal District Works. And if you looked at the 2025 figures, you will see that reflected in the allocation for West Clare. And indeed, that will be reflected again in the 2026 allocations.
Okay, well, that is Clare County Council Senior Engineer, Transportation, Mobility, Health and Safety Officer Cyril Feeney. Cyril, thank you very much for joining us on Clare FM's Morning Focus today.
You're welcome. Thanks, Daragh.